morning to you.
Welcome. I'm Gert Johnson, founder and coordinator of the Interfaith Story Circle of the Tri-City area. And I'm here today with two young women who are or former students of our youth program, Children at the Well Youth Storytellers for Peace and Understanding, Sarah Mohamed Ali and Adah Hetko. The two of them are in this picture, this underneath our logo up here. This was their first year, our first year of Children at the Well, and they were part of our first program. Mm-hmm. Sarah, you want to find yourself up there?
Right here.
There you are. Uh-huh.
I was in 7th grade starting this program.
Yeah. And what school were you from, Sarah?
I was at a Noor Islamic school.
You were at Noor Islamic School, right. And you have other people from the school there with you too. Who else do you see up there?
Right. There's Selma and Alauddin and Nasiba right here.
Right. Okay. And how about you, Adah? You see your young self up there?
Yeah, I'm over here.
Right
there.
There you are.
And I was in 9th grade, so that's a little bit older, but we all look really, really, really young.
Yeah, you do all look really, really young. You were, and you really did a superb job. I was just thinking now, Adah is of the Jewish tradition, and there's two other storytellers there from the Jewish tradition.
Yeah.
Ben and Nate Hoffman and Kid.
And also Alyssa.
And Alyssa, that's right.
Yeah,
Alyssa
right.
too. Okay. All right. Can you tell me what it was like to be a young person of your tradition, you know, of the Jewish tradition and the Muslim tradition as you became part of this program?
Well, for me, it was really, really exciting.
Exciting.
Because I'd been through Hebrew school, and I had learned a little bit about other religions from being part of the Interfaith Story Circle and from classmates at school, but I'd never really learned through stories about other people's traditions with people of my own age before. So it was really exciting.
Yeah. So you were saying to me that you had been with people in school of other traditions, but not in this kind of a setting for the purpose of sharing stories.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd never intentionally been part of a group of young people who really face difficult topics and really probed into what it meant to be someone from a religious background in our generation.
Yeah. Did it make you feel like you were representing your faith?
Yes, it made me feel like I was representing my faith, but free to do it in a way that felt authentic to me. And it definitely kept me interested in my faith in a way that I certainly wouldn't have been otherwise.
Yeah. Is that true of you too, Sarah? Do you remember what you felt like?
As a Muslim woman or a young woman, I was very interested in other people's cultures and backgrounds and religions. It was nice to be around people my age with different backgrounds because we shared so many similarities, and we talked about how similar we are. It was just nice. It was nice to be around a group of people my age, definitely, and I got to learn a lot of new things from them. Of their religions.
Sarah, do you remember what story you told that year?
Oh yeah, I told the story of my grandmother, and about how it was, how she was a student, and back then in Sudan, where I'm from, women were not allowed to go to school, so it was night. So she used to sneak around and go to school until she got educated. So it was a very special story to me, and it was nice to share it with other people. And I've gotten a lot of nice feedback from that story.
Yes,
people.
I still remember people's response to that story.
Yes.
You know, the audience's response to hearing that story about because they didn't know until the end of the story that who you were talking about in the story was your grandmother.
Right.
Yeah, you had a surprise ending.
It was a surprise ending.
I remember that. Yeah. How about some of the highlights for you of your time in Children at the Well, Adah?
I loved listening to other students' stories.
Mhm.
Like I remember the first time that I heard Sarah's stories, we were doing, it was really early in the coaching, and we were doing an exercise where we would just tell the story to one other person, and most people were very much at the beginning stages of learning their story, and it wasn't really fully formed, but Sarah just like came out with this like beautiful story. Whoa! I was really, really impressed. And each year, the new group of students would bring their own ways of telling stories and their own interpretations of stories, and I just loved listening to other
And you
students
listening to
telling.
one another and giving each other appreciations was a big part of your process, right?
Right.
Definitely.
You think the appreciations really made a difference?
Absolutely, because
Yeah.
instead of, like, of course criticism is needed once in a while, but the way the coaches worked with us, it was appreciations helped us grow more and helped us have more ideas for stories.
Yeah.
So it would be nice.
That's another way that it was different from school. It's completely non-competitive.
Very,
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
And I
Right.
think it had a lot to do with the success of the program, right? And the way
Right.
you felt about
Definitely.
yourselves, that it wasn't a competition, it was a sharing.
Right.
Yeah.
And each one of you got to develop your own unique gifts and talents. You all had different ways of telling.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they all got drawn out of you. So you told personal stories sometimes, Sarah, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I told a lot of personal stories that would connect me to my culture.
Right.
I also told a lot of, Nasruddin stories.
Yes, I know. They were the favorites of a lot of people.
Yeah,
Your
because they're
Nasruddin
very
stories. Yeah.
they're enjoyable by people from different crowds, different age groups. So
Yeah.
it would be nice to connect with the audience in that way.
Yeah.
Um,
Nasruddin was a wise man, but he was also a bit of a comic, right?
right, he was.
So his words of wisdom usually came in the form of a funny story.
Right.
Yeah, in the form of a fun, and everybody liked to hear the Nasruddin tales.
Right.
Yeah. In fact, Adah, didn't you pick up on one of her Nasruddin tales and tell it at another time?
Yeah, I
Mhm.
was in.
I don't know if she knows that.
Yeah, I was in Nepal recently, volunteering at a children's home, and one of the kids figured out that I told stories. So I had, I think, 4 diehard fans, and every time they had free time, they would ask me for stories. And I started running out of the stories that I would usually tell, and I also had some stories that I couldn't tell because there's too much context,
Right.
or the plot was too complicated, and they didn't have very much English. So I needed like simple, really great stories. So I pulled out The Moon and the Well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
She said, what did you say? You heard it so often?
I heard it so many times that it was very, no problem, yeah.
She could do her own version.
Aw,
So that was a tribute to you, Sarah.
that's nice.
She remembers your story, and it got told in Nepal.
Yeah.
That's
And
pretty
some
good.
of them, and Nasruddin stories are popular there, so
Okay.
a couple of them knew it, but they liked it anyway. So that's good.
Yeah.
That's how you tell it.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
do you think stories, I don't know if you knew at this young age, but do you think stories have a power or a value that you weren't aware of when you first started?
Absolutely. Like stories. The thing about stories is it has so much value, rather than through dialogue or just the way stories come about. It makes it's a stronger connection to whatever the message you're trying to come across.
Yeah.
So it's very
They're enjoyable.
right.
They draw people in, and they probably have a message in them, but actually it could be a different message for each person who's
Right,
listening,
exactly.
right? Yeah, but they have they carry. What about you, Adah? You want to say anything about the power of story? Maybe in particularly in relation to young people or people in general of different faiths. What does the story do, maybe?
The story draws a sort of magnetic attention to the storyteller and a respect for what they're saying that you don't get in any other situation.
Right.
So I think one thing that was really amazing about the first year was that so many of the students were so young,
They were.
and the audience was much older, but they had this great connection.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you're telling a story, you're communicating a piece of your truth, and so there's no judgment, there's no conflict in having very different ideas put next to each other.
Yeah, that's a good point. You can't really debate a story.
No.
No. So what you usually pick out of it, no matter what faith you are, is what you have in common.
Right.
You know, the message, the universal message that it's sending. Yeah. What more? Maybe we could take a look at some of the pictures that we have here from past years to help us remember some of the other highlights of children at the Well down through the years. Oh, there you are, Sarah.
I look so young.
How old were you there, do you think?
I think 14, maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, that was from the newspaper.
Yes, that was an article. That was when Adah was, I was coaching Adah. That's my home, and I don't know, what story were you working on? I remember your Princess of Light story and the fact that you actually took a story and used it for your bat mitzvah. Yeah.
We're with Marnie, who is one of
our
the
coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is our picnic.
It's a picnic that we held at the end of each year, the annual picnic, where everybody has a great time.
All the families get together.
Yes,
Right.
that's Alyssa. We should mention that many of our, that's recently at Sharing the Fire at a conference in Albany, where 3 of our storytellers told before an audience of 200 professional storytellers, which was quite amazing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was quite amazing.
That's great.
And there's some of our parents and our coaches. And there we're eating the wide variety of food that comes into our potluck, which follows the event, which is really great. There's Calafella, Sarah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
There's Calafella.
And his brother.
Yeah.
Oh, was that at the camp?
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, that's nice.
This was-
Susie and
Yeah.
Mimi, who is one
Yes.
of the first storytellers also.
Yeah.
Oh, it's me.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Oh, there we all are. That's a nice picture.
That
because
was our
that's a
second
couple
year.
years later, I think maybe our second or third year. But there we
Right.
are, coaches and students up the staircase at the church. And that's Aditya, who's a Hindu, and
Who's new?
past 2 years,
Oh,
quite an
yeah.
accomplished teller.
Okay.
And we should mention that many of our students, now that's our picnic, we should mention that our parents often get together during the project, and that many of our students stay with us throughout
Of
their high
course,
school
right.
years. They go from year to year.
Right.
Yeah.
Which you two did.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
there's
there's-
Alaudine from the first year.
Papa.
Right.
There's Rita.
And there's Ritam, and remember his story of Mundabava?
Yes.
You
So
could probably tell that one too, Adah.
Yeah.
And there is Salamatu from Ghana. She was with us last year.
That was my graduation.
Oh, yeah.
There you are.
Picnic.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Adah. That's Adah and me
There's,
continuing our relationship through the years.
Of taking pictures together.
There's a couple of our students practicing before an
Right.
event, before the telling.
Where did they tell?
Hmm?
Which event was that?
I think that was this last year, wasn't it? That was this last year in there that they're getting ready for a special telling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That was Nazareth.
What was the Nazareth conference like?
The first conference that I had went to was amazing. It was an interfaith conference where so many people came, and they did a lot of dialogue, but we brought a lot of storytelling to the convention. It was really nice to have other people be interested in story, and we had a workshop that some of the students led.
That's right.
But it was really nice to have so many different people interested in story, and a lot of people came to our workshop, and
Yes.
and they liked the idea of storytelling rather than dialogue.
Yes, people love stories, which brings me to Adah. You have a story for us today that you could tell?
Sure.
Okay.
So this story, I think it's called The Three Wishes, and it's the signature story of a Jewish storyteller named Cherie Caro Schwartz. So
Very
I'm
good.
not
You're getting your
crediting
sources
it.
in there very
Yes,
professionally,
my
like a
sources.
storyteller, right?
But it's just a quick story. Once upon a time, there was a man who didn't have very much money, and he'd lost his eyesight when he was young.
Oh dear.
And he didn't have any children, but he lived with his wife in a little house, and even though they didn't have very much, they were happy together. And one day, in the springtime, he went for a walk by the river close to their house. And he could hear the birds in the trees, and he could hear the water rushing past. And then he heard something unfamiliar. There was a tapping like a cane on the ground in front of him, and there was a whoosh like a cloak swishing along the grass. And he smelled something amazing. It smelled like wonderful flowers and fruits from the Garden of Eden. And he knew that he was in the presence of Elijah the prophet. And Elijah said, "Sir, I have been watching you and your wife, and I know that you don't have very much, but you are happy together, and I would like to grant you one wish." And the man thought, "Oh no, I don't know what to wish for. I would like more money. I would love to have children, but I would also like so much to have my eyesight back. Dear Elijah, please give me a little bit of time to decide what my wish will be." He said, Okay, I'll meet you back here the same time tomorrow." And with that, whoosh, Elijah left, and the man went back to his house, and he told his wife what had happened. And she said, don't worry, I'll figure this out." And the next morning, she whispered something into his ear, and he went out to meet Elijah, and again, he heard the tapping of the cane and whoosh, the swoosh of the cloak, and he smelled that wonderful smell like fruit from the Garden of Eden. And Elijah said, "Sir, what is your wish?" The man was prepared. "Elijah, I would like one day to see my grandchild eat from a golden plate. I would like to see my grandchild eat from a golden plate." And Elijah laughed. "Oh, your wife told you this, didn't she?" And his wishes were granted.
So we got to see,
He got to
Fancy.
he
see,
got the money,
Got the
got
money.
the money.
and he got the child, the grandchild.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful little story, Adah. Yeah.
I've told it many times.
You told it.
Yeah.
Did you tell it in India? Did you tell it when you were in India?
I didn't tell it in India. The children I was around had very little English, so, so I couldn't really communicate it.
Yeah.
But when I was in Nepal, I told it, but of course they hadn't heard of the prophet Elijah, so I had to make
Right.
it a magical bird.
You made it a magical bird.
Yeah, and that worked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that sometimes happens too. You know, you hear a story in one tradition and then you get versions in other ones, right?
Right.
Definitely.
That happens a lot with the
And
Islamic stories.
Right, and
Yeah,
Nasruddin stories.
Nasruddin stories. Any other ways you've used stories since you were part of Children at the Well, Adah?
I was part of a storytelling group at Oberlin for a semester,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a little bit less formal. It was more like
Yeah.
it's a little more like slam poetry than the type of storytelling that we do in Children at the Well, a little bit less narrative. But I had a great time doing that and just getting back into storytelling that way. And then in informal situations, I've used stories all the time.
Right.
I was on an 8-hour bus ride in Nepal, and I was just spitting them out because there wasn't anything else to do. I was part of an impromptu Sukkot celebration when I was at Oberlin last year, and just a whole bunch of students got together and we were singing songs, and I told a couple stories because it was just like a really special Jewish space that just sort of appeared. And I was like, how can I contribute?
Yeah.
And it was a perfect way to contribute. So.
You think you'll continue to do that?
Definitely.
Yeah, you're going to be looking for ways to use it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I want to learn more stories, for sure.
Yeah. You want to develop your craft even more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that's wonderful about having the young people stay with us, is that they have from year to year just gotten, gotten more and more effective as storytellers, and really get to a certain point where you can, the two of you can at this point, craft your own stories.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, what do you think, Sarah, about your future? Do you see you see stories made a difference to you and your communication or your life?
Absolutely. Through storytelling, ever since I was younger, I feel like I've gained a lot of confidence in my speaking and myself. And also, I find myself using stories to explain certain things, or just to share throughout. Like Adah says, if there's an opportunity to share a story, to share it, really.
Yeah. Well, people are finding that across the board. Storytellers across the nation are using story for healing.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful group that focuses on that. They're using storytelling in business today. They're using storytelling. There's been a real revival of it.
Wow.
So for all of you who are graduates, so to speak, of Children at the Well, you are carrying that tool that will serve you well. Because like you said, Adah, when people start to tell a story, everybody kind of sits up and listens.
Right.
In a different way, right? In a different way. And I can only attest to the fact of being very grateful for you coming into the project, and there you are in 7th and 9th grade, and the wonderful young women that you've become, and how you're carrying Children at the Well with you into the world, and the friendships that you've made, and the skills that you've learned, and the great respect that you now have, is it, when you see people of different traditions, does Children at the Well, being in it, make a difference to you now?
Oh, absolutely. Because
Yeah.
I would know that if I see someone who from a different culture, I would know that they have some sort of story to share, or some sort of story that they have that's similar to mine.
Yeah. You too, Adah?
Definitely. I think it makes me more willing to take the risk of approaching people who are obviously
different traditions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's true that for many of our students, when they first come to us, I don't know if that was true of both of you, I don't think necessarily, but they might never have been with people of other faiths.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So those of us that have taken this journey with you are very grateful. What about your parents? Were they grateful too that you were part of it?
I think so.
You think
Yeah.
so? Yeah. Did they get to know each other as
Yeah.
well as you did?
Yes.
Yes.
And they've grown and had created friendships throughout Children at the Well as well, just as well as the students. And I feel like my parents, especially my mother, has grown in the interfaith community so much. She was
Through
more
Children at the
through
Well?
Children at the Well.
Yeah. I do know we had one parent say that many times the projects or programs that their children would be engaged in were just for the children and not for the parents, but
Mhm.
Children at the Well had a parent component where parents met with each other, got to know each other, shared their stories and about their different faith traditions
Yeah.
at different points in time, and that was very special.
Mm.
So it's all the families coming together for one big family.
That's
We all
true.
eat together
Yeah,
in so many
we do.
cultures.
Yeah.
That's what makes you family.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So-
I still remember after the first year, after the event, that what you were doing was signing each other's programs. I don't know if you remember doing that. Do you remember?
I remember doing
Yeah.
that.
You remember
Yeah.
doing that?
I do remember
You
doing
didn't
that.
want to leave each other, and
Yeah.
you were after the potluck, after we had eaten, after the potluck, you were signing
signed
each
each
other's,
other's.
yeah, autographing each other's, getting each other's autographs. Yeah, very happy to be together. So, okay, so I'm very grateful, and I can speak for all the adults and the coaches and all the people who administer Children at the Well, and for all the people in Interfaith Story Circle who really see each one of you as a light, as a bridge to the future, you know, as carrying on our mission of breaking down barriers and working for peace and understanding. So important in our world today that we really see you as lights going out into the world. So we hope and we pray that you see yourselves that way too, and that you carry us with you, and who knows, someday you may be working in a program like Children at the Well with other young people.
Yeah.
Always keep that in mind as a possibility. I think Sarah's interested right now, aren't you?
Yeah.
In maybe helping us out. So anyway, you're a light to us, and you're a light to the world, and we're very grateful for you and for being here today with us and sharing a little bit of your experiences.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome.